Kent Molgat from KelownaNow, joined by Dr. Kyleen Myrah and Martin Bell. Thanks for coming in. These are your task force co-chairs for Kelowna's Journey Home Task Force to try to deal with homelessness, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right. Thanks for having us in.
Yeah, good to have you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. So, what a daunting task. This is a perennial issue for Kelowna. It's been around a long time. It seems unsolvable, but you've taken it on. Are there times when you ask yourself, why did I take this on? It's too much?
You know, I think both of us feel quite privileged to have been asked to co-chair the task force. And I think, you know, we're continually amazed at the people who have stepped up to support it and the level of activity and development we've seen in this topic. So we're just really, excited to move forward with it.
Feeling the same way?
Absolutely. I think it's just been great to see the community coming together, so many groups and so many agencies and individuals stepping up to get involved and participate, and people contacting us directly to talk about their perspectives, you know, some of their lived experience or family experience, but wanting to be involved and part of the solution. And so as complex as the issue is, and it is a complex issue, there are lots of facets to it, a lot of people have stepped up to give us their perspective, and it's helping kind of paint in the picture as to what needs to happen. So it's been really rewarding, and the community has definitely invested in it, which has been a big part of the privilege to get to be involved.
So we're about 6 months in.
Yep.
What can you tell me? What kind of progress are you making?
Well, I think, you know, you've seen in terms of sort of the structure of the group going forward, we've got an advisory board or the task force. So that's been really important. We've hired a consultant to work alongside us who's got real expertise across the country in this. We've had lots of public consultation with some key stakeholder summits. So we are really gathering the gaps, the areas that we're feeling we need to put some structure and really get some key strategies for. The sector is working together in ways that are so exciting that we haven't seen in quite a long time. So there's collaborative activities. We're already seeing new initiatives and new programs happening. And so that's been really positive. And we're seeing new things like new housing structures coming online, new programs and services. So we are already seeing momentum in this area that's working alongside the Journey Home Task Force.
So you're not just working towards having a report in a year, you're actually getting some things happening along the way.
That's been the benefit of actually having a lot of the task force members. A lot of them work in the sector, but some of them have lived experience, and some of them come from Indigenous communities in the region. Some of them are business owners or people that live and work in the downtown. But, you know, a lot of good thinking has been going into it, but a lot of solutions are kind of coming even in those conversations at the community summits, where people are having that aha moment when they share, you know, this is really where we need to be going, or this is kind of the root cause of an issue. All those people are in the room, and instead of going away back to their own agencies, they've sat down and said, okay, we can all pitch in here and make a move, or make some progress on this. And so they've been forming off to the side and actually working on some of those different items. And they are making progress, and they are getting some services that are set up and delivered, and hitting the ground running pretty quickly on a number of these things too. So the collaboration has been great. And as we've said before too, just the levels of government, everybody recognizes there's an issue, but everybody is starting to step up, and beyond strategies, there's funding going into from BC Housing and others. There's funding, a strategy and a national strategy from the federal government. But, you know, if there's going to be a move made, it has to be now, when you've got all three levels of the city, the province, and the federal government moving towards the same need and understanding. And so the progress needs to be made now.
Yeah, hearing you say moving now sort of allays some of my fears, because when you go onto the city's website that describes what you're up to, first thing it says is develop a long-term strategy to prevent homelessness. And I found myself putting my palm on my forehead at that point, going, this is just vague. It's like, I mean, I want world peace too.
Yes.
Right? I think that people in the downtown in particular would say, never mind long-term strategies to prevent homelessness. I want short-term strategies to deal with the homelessness I have now in my community. And that is part of what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So there is a focus on housing first. So, getting people into housing, getting wraparound support care. One of the key things we're looking at is that coordinated access. So we want to find a way that wherever you are in the system, you can find services within 7 days, have wraparound supports, get housed, get the support you need. We don't want a system that focuses on just emergency, transitional. We want people to get into long-term housing. So, but that takes some time. You have to understand where people are accessing it now, where it's not working, and then you have to build some of that. So, you'll see Cornerstone that came in to kind of fill a gap, the downtown 24-hour shelter. So we're doing some things in some of the new modular housing and some of the other initiatives proposed by BC Housing. We're looking at things short term to try to get things moving, but also what we need for a long-term strategy. So we don't want to be coming back to the table in 10 years talking about this issue again. We want to have the plan that moves us forward for the long term for the community.
Right. When somebody spoke to the city about Portland, Oregon's experience 15 years ago, the message was pretty simple. What do homeless people need? Homes. Right?
That's right.
So that's what you mean when you say housing first?
Yep.
So
Definitely.
So are we going to be seeing that?
That's a big part of it is getting people into housing. And housing first, a big part of it is not having barriers to entry. So the theory behind it, the thinking behind it that's emerged is putting people into homes and having them being safe is a big part. If they need help for mental health reasons, if they need help for addiction reasons, that you have to have them somewhere where they're safe and secure before they can start making progress on those items. And so housing first is a barrier-free entry into that system. So it's not you need to be sober to get into housing. It's actually flipping them all around, as you're saying, is putting people into housing and giving them that base strength that they can actually start to recover, that they can start to get the housing, the help and the support that they need.
And I think probably you need to accept that you're not going to solve everybody's problems, but get everybody under a roof first, and you have a better chance to solve more people's problems.
I think the idea around solving homelessness, right? We know that that's a very difficult and complex. So what you're hearing us talk a lot about is this functional zero homelessness. So the idea that when it happens, it is rare, short-lived, and non-reoccurring.
Is that realistic? Can we get to that? What do you call it?
Functional zero.
Is that?
So I think we're seeing it in other communities, and that have the resources, the infrastructure, the community will, and so that's what we are putting together. So that the idea is that people may choose to live on the street or not to accept some of the services. So we have to think about that, but that within a very short amount of time, that if they choose to, there are places for them to go to get the support they need.
Right. I think that the Okanagan, Kelowna in particular, does have the added wrinkle that, hey, if you're homeless in Winnipeg, Kelowna's looking pretty good.
Yes. Yep.
So we're always going to be importing. No sooner do we kind of solve our endemic, transient homelessness issue, and here comes more people. Yep. So, I mean, it'll probably always be there.
There's definitely, there's an element of that too, and Dr. Alina Turner, who's the national expert on homelessness, talked about this is an attractive place to live. It's a place to work increasingly too, and so people come and migrate. Everybody migrates for those kind of reasons. It's an attractive place to live, and it's an attractive place to work. The other wrinkle is that it has a transient seasonal population that works here as well. So you've got those things those have been going on for 100 plus years. They're not recent things. And housing those people has been challenging for many, many years. And people are realizing now that the scale of that is growing, and there needs to be some action on it. So just doing the same is not going to resolve that. But yeah, just the climate, the environment, the work opportunities, it is going to attract people here. There's no question.
Years ago, a mayor of Kelowna once said to me, if we build houses for these people, they're just going to fill up and more will come. So do you butt up against that sort of thinking?
I think that we need to challenge ourselves when we have some of that thinking. So people move, people without homes move for some of the same reasons we do. They want a nice place to live. They want social supports. They want to find employment opportunities. And right now there's, some employment opportunities. There's good weather. So they may come here because they know somebody. They think there might be opportunities for them. So we need to provide for them, just like we need to provide for people that have grown up in our community. So I think we have to stop thinking about the fear of that if we build it, they will come. And we have to accept that we have in-migration at certain periods of time, and we need to account for that, and we need to prepare for that. And not see that as a fear, but just recognize that as something that happens within our community.
Right. So as you go along, you say you've gone from 21 members to 23. I'm trying to imagine chairing a meeting with 23 people, and you bring up what you're going to have for lunch, and you're going to have an hour and a half conversation. Is it, as you're in this spirit of inclusiveness, is it sometimes cumbersome involving so many voices?
Not really. I think everybody's really been working in a spirit of collaboration and cooperation and bringing their expertise and experience and having some external people who've worked with us who are experts, who've worked in other communities, the Medicine Hats, where you see a functional zero homelessness rate, and the Calgarys and Edmontons and across Canada, St. John's. They really bring perspective, and so there's a lot of learning from what's gone on elsewhere, and so learning from on the ground here in Kelowna and actually being informed and educated by some of the experiences elsewhere, it leads to a lot of really interesting conversations, but it's also causing us to have to challenge a lot of the stereotypes or biases or some of the different questions, the tough questions, like if you build it, they will come. Yeah, they are coming now anyhow. They are in our community, and people are homeless, and they need a place to live, and so not building it isn't a solution either. And I think that's the thing, is people have been a bit frozen and paralyzed by some of these questions, and we need to start addressing them. And so that's been really great about the task force, is a group of people that are committed, and they want to kind of go through some of that journey of really digging deep on some of those questions.
You know, some of the business community are past caring about the lives of these people. They're exasperated in terms of how it affects their business, and you know, it's sad that people get to the point where we're not seeing these people as the human beings that they are, but there they are. They're trying to run a business. Can you make them any sort of a promise that things are going to get better?
So I think one of the things is we recognize that it's just been disruptive for businesses. We also recognize that, you know, people have a right to a home, and some of the situations that people have come from, they didn't choose to be born or come from some of those situations. So we have to recognize that homelessness isn't always a choice, and that everybody has a right to housing. That said, you know, this is the time we've got community leaders, strong community leaders that have stepped up to plate. We have a local political, arena that is really supportive of this. We have all levels of government that have said that this is a high priority. In fact, the provincial government has set up a new ministry in mental health and addictions just to try to deal with some of these issues as well. So this is the time, the momentum is there. Right. We're about to go into some extensive community consultation with some design labs and some public surveys, so there's a chance for people to get involved, tell us about what their needs are, some of their solutions, how they might want to get involved. So we're seeking additional input before we put our final plan together, but we are very confident that we have the expertise to, you know, put together what needs to happen, and then, you know, the key is finding the resources to support this plan.
Okay.
We need some resources.
Okay, you just said it, because as you're saying, I'm hearing a willingness. Everyone wants to talk about it. There are 23 people on your panel discussing it. So everyone wants it to get better, but who's getting out their checkbook? Are you going to get the money you need to do the things you need to do?
Yeah. A big part of having this plan, I think that's, you know, I know a lot of people have asked about another plan and another strategy, and is it going to sit on the shelf? The plan, with the senior levels of government, they require this plan now to actually get funding. I mean, there's hundreds of millions of dollars at the provincial level. There's billions of dollars being committed at the federal level. This plan is a precursor to actually accessing those funds. So Kelowna is early out of the gates in BC, which is, you know, credit to leaders locally for getting on that. But it's actually putting us in a very good position as a community to actually access that funding. So it's a requirement that this plan is done, and it's a requirement that is done quickly, because these programs are being rolled out here this summer. And so that's something that is funding it is a big part of the strategy. It's not just saying, well, it's going to cost this much, and everybody throws up their hands and walks away. A big part of it's actually pointing out it's going to cost a lot of money, but this is how we can actually fund it. And so those programs are lined up for that. There are other agencies and a lot of service providers on the ground that do have funding, and they are committing it to things like, we see the Foundry, we see other things where local private residents are making large donations. People are working the operating side. There's funding coming into CMHA and other parties to actually participate in that. So there are things that are happening now. I think that's one thing that we have to point out. There's so many service groups here who are doing fantastic work, and it's happening now. It's not that there's nothing happening and the strategy freezes all those activities. There's a lot of things that are going on that front, and we have to kind of keep fostering that environment for them to collaborate, because the more that those agencies work together, the upward spiral of opportunity to actually solve this grows, and it is funded. They are being funded.
So I'm about to wrap this thing up. Is there any point you guys wanted to make before we put a bow on this?
Yeah, I think just to look for the next month at some engagement opportunities, that we want some citizen input from that, and we want their ideas, that this is a plan by the community for the community. So we want people to feel a part of this, and we need them to help implement it forward. So it is not something that we are doing to impose upon the community.
Well, this has been great. Will you guys come back in another 6 months and we'll see how you're doing?
We'd love to.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Dr. Kyleen, Myrah, and Martin Bell from the City of Kelowna's Journey Home Task Force on Homelessness. Thanks very much for coming in.
Thanks, Ken.
Thanks for having us.
KelownaNow, I'm Ken Molcat.